So we are here on this interview, this chat to just share our common interest, common passion, common fascination for the work of Gurdjieff, and particularly his movements. And and this is simply a conversation between students of this work who at some point of their lives were very, very intensely invested in this work and had, from it created a lot of change. And I would love to hear you, Francesca, how you got into this.
Yeah. Yeah. So I met my Gurdjieff teachers in India, actually, in an Osho ashram. And I had no idea who Gurdjieff was, and I had no idea what these movements were. But I just really felt a resonance with the two of them. And then they were like, yeah, we don't normally invite people to this kind of thing that we do, but why don't you come to France to our Gurdjieff movement 1 week retreat? And I just went. And I remember at the beginning, I was so confused. I was like, what are we doing? What is this? Like, I came from a completely different world. Yeah. And and then suddenly it started to like slowly drip drop. I started to understand, understand what we were doing there. It's more like I had a sensed felt feeling of what this work was doing to me. And I remember that after that first full week intensive,
Mhm.
where I had like many challenging moments of like, what the hell am I doing here? But I remember like coming home after that and feeling like a completely different person. I was like, I don't know what happened, but I know that whatever happened, it has shifted and changed me significantly.
Yeah.
So it's like it was working in very subtle ways, but the change was drastic, actually, for me
Yeah.
in that moment.
Mhm.
And I remember it was even like a bit like after a medicine journey where like you come home and you kind of need to integrate those changes. And at the beginning, I remember like it was hard for me to like relate with my friends and my family and the people that I was used to relating with because I had changed so significantly.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a very similar experience of, I mean, even the way I got to know about the first Gurdjieff retreat I attended was completely very random. I wasn't I was coming back from India. I had done a year of back-to-back retreats, yoga, vipassana, what have you, months in ashrams. And I came back from this sabbatical and I was looking for a job. And so my focus was, having interviews and landing a job. And in the middle of all that, I, very randomly hear about this Gurdjieff retreat. And the first time I had heard about Gurdjieff was through Osho in his center in Pune. And the way he had talked about Gurdjieff seemed so intriguing and just very, very mysterious and very alluring somehow. And I knew straight away that I had to do these 7 days in Portugal, and without having any idea of what it was really about. And definitely, if there's one retreat where I have felt a completely different person before and after, was this very first Gurdjieff retreat. It's not a guarantee. I've attended Gurdjieff retreats every year since, and the first retreat was 6 years ago, and that hasn't happened to me since. So it is not necessarily this like ongoing crazy transformation, and I don't even believe that that's necessary. Um, but the first time there was definitely before and after in my levels of sensitivity, my levels of how I relate to the world, really feeling like I developed this sixth sense of feeling energies, feeling the subtle worlds. And that was all, yeah, all thanks to this work and the way, perhaps also the way it was led by my teacher, Carol Squire, who was just this incredible human, who also comes from a Sufi lineage, and the Gurdjieff work is also very influenced by Sufi mysticism, so that probably contributed as well. Mm.
Yeah.
But my question to you was, because you mentioned that when you started meeting this work, then for a period of 2 years, you went to 3 times 3 weeks intensives and several week long. So you were like full on for a couple of years, like really
Totally.
full on. And what was it that, yeah, what happened to you? And what was it that made you want to keep going deeper, keep exploring this?
Yeah. So I feel there were many elements. Like one of them was the fact that like it was such a shift from where I was coming. Like as I was sharing before, like I was taking lots of drugs. I was like very lost. I had finished a degree in psychology and didn't know what to do with my life. And like I feel like yeah, the movements were giving me like a structure, like and connecting me to myself in a way that I hadn't been ever been connected to before, and connected me to life and like these group experiences and group dynamic that I feel like are really part of it. And I had some of the first, apart from like experiences on the dance floor, that was the first time where I experienced this feeling of like a group body, you know, of being like part of this bigger entity. And suddenly, like, yeah, I'm an individual, but I'm also like this bigger entity. And I thought that I could only experience that on a dance floor with drugs, you
Mm,
know? And
mm,
instead, through the movements, I was having this experience sober. And I was like, oh wow, like it's possible to have these experiences in other ways.
mhm,
And I feel like, yeah, that was definitely also an element that kept me coming, and also the deepening, because some of the people were always coming back as well. So there was this kind of like deepening with that group. Um, and yeah, and giving me this sense of structure and helping me come to sobriety, actually.
mm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, beautiful. So what are we even talking about? What are the Gurdjieff retreats? And I know that we've been studying with two different sets of teachers, even though I did go on a 3 day journey with your teachers as well, quite recently. But yeah, I'm curious to know how you would define the Gurdjieff movements.
yeah. So Gurdjieff talks about the three centers, no? Like the actually there's four. The sexual center is also centered, like the physical center, the intellectual center, the emotional center, and the sexual center. And I feel like, yeah, the movements have been created to like bring these centers together, no? And in each center contains all centers, no? So there's like the intellectual, emotional, and physical center of the intellectual center, the intellectual, emotional, physical center of the emotional center. And sometimes we're like more in one than, like often we're more in one than the other, and it differs from people to people. Like some people spend a lot of time in the physical center, some people spend a lot of time in the emotional. And I feel for me the movements were like bringing them together because they're very complex, right? It's like it's very hard to like be in the counting only, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you're only in the counting, you get lost. You need the like memory of the physical center. But if you're only in the physical center and you don't have some awareness of the counting, you also get lost. If you get taken by the music or by the like certain archetypes that are invoked by the positions, you also get lost. And so it's kind of like forcing you to find the point where they're all together. And to
Mhm.
be honest, in the 2 years that I was like practicing consistently, I had maybe 3 or 4 experiences of that, of like the moments where like suddenly like vroom, everything comes together. And
Mhm.
it's like I'm really feeling the archetype, and I'm really like it's like the movements are doing me. I'm not doing the movements anymore,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? And the stillness and silence and like presence that comes after that,
Mhm.
I feel like even like 1 minute of that effect, that after effect, is worth a whole year of practice, you
Mm.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I just find it fascinating that there's a mystic who decided to teach. I mean, he taught in a lot of different ways, a lot of different modalities, but a huge part of his body of work was to create these hundreds of movements and compose and work with a composer to create the perfect music that would fit these movements to create a body of work, a body of spiritual teachings. And while most or a lot of spiritual teachers will teach through words, it's never about the words. It's about the energy behind the words and the energy field that they create that we can receive. And it just so happens that words are a vehicle. And Gurdjieff, like other traditions, and namely the Sufi mysticism, took it a step further and chose to create these transmissions that work us not only by doing the dance but also by learning the dances, like you were saying, this integration process of the three centers, mind, the heart, the body, in these challenging dances, the process of trying to integrate them, the journey of integrating them is also part of the teaching. And then there's a second layer of teaching that is these minutes, these moments of exploring a movement, or having the movement dance you in this alignment that is almost like a shift of dimension, like a complete consciousness shift where yeah, then it's a whole other universe. And so for me, these dances are kind of twofold. There's so much learning going on, in the doing, in the in the face of challenge, in the face of having other people dance right next to you, and my movements depends on their movements, and their movements depends on my positions. And so yeah, how do I stay present, and I involve my heart, my body, and my mind, in a challenging, also interpersonal situation. And I feel like this journey has supported me on the day-to-day life, in my relationships, in my work, so on and so forth. And then there's the beautiful, almost like divine transmissions, when this moment where I get this one movement right, so to say, or that I just really get it in my body, which is then just pierces my heart. Number of times where I just would take this first position, and I would just start cracking open for no reason that I can understand. And then the quality of stillness that comes after that is priceless.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I really feel like I love it because it in your sharing, what it reminded me of was the moments of like how sometimes in a very challenging way, how like clearly it was facing me with my shit, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and and with so many little pieces, like for example, one of the pieces that comes to my mind now is like the part of us that like wants to get it right,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
It's like and then you're so tense, you know? Or then the other part, like the opposite side, where it's like, ah, whatever, forget,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
pull.
Yeah.
And like finding the balance inside me of like, okay, where is the point where like there's a will, there's my will, but it's like soft and gentle and it doesn't come from this like effort, you know, and it's
Yeah.
like, no, like,
Yeah.
yeah, I love, this is something that I really love about the movements is like the subtle teachings that come from it, but the like drastic changes that they bring, like the drastic insights, the drastic like, because it's happening also on like the levels that we can't fully comprehend with our mind, I feel.
Yeah.
What is happening sometimes, it's the mind wants to grasp it and to understand it, and some things cannot be understood,
Mhm.
but they're felt, you know. Yeah. And then after, like maybe months after, you're like, oh, that's what was happening,
Yeah.
you know.
Yes, absolutely. It's funny. I was just thinking about this morning. That's almost, like the metaphor of the guitar string, that if it's too loose, you can't play it. If it's too tense, then it breaks. And for me, it's been all about that. Like, how do I get out of this pendulation of like, oh, I don't care. Oh, this really needs to get this right, and then have this presence. And it's almost like this, yeah, this surrendered presence that, yeah, that ripples out in daily life, because then I see when I'm too tense in the task that I'm trying to do, or when I don't care, when my heart's not into it, and then finding that middle ground is like the practice ground during the retreats that gets integrated in daily life, and that is really precious. Hmm.
Wow, I just realized something really deep about this. Like, I mean, I'm sure you can find so many layers of it, but I just felt the layer of like the saying yes to life, like the part of me that is like, no, yes, I'm here. I am here and I'm gonna do this life. I'm gonna live this life. And then the part of me that is like, I just want to die. I
Mm.
just want to die. You know, and then what that part that is like, no, I'm doing life and I'm gonna win life, you know.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
no, how can I like just be here as a
Absolutely.
yes? But you know, I
Absolutely.
love
This
that.
is, for me, this is why I'm just so fascinated by these movements. Is for me, these movements are life, are like a representation of life. And
Yeah,
and then how in this container I relate to the movements is a perfect mirror of how I relate to life. And that is why it is
spot
like
on.
so subtle and also so in your face.
Confronting
Yeah.
sometimes because you're like, oh
Mm,
fuck, that's how I relate to life. Okay.
yeah.
And like how you
Absolutely.
relate to yourself and how you relate to the group also, no? And like what's your
Yeah.
place in the group and how, yeah, and oof, it's deep.
Yeah, and then the placements in the groups of, am I do I had a lot for a long time in these retreats. I had this like, okay, I am one of the people who know the movements the best, and I have to be in front, and I have to support all the group, because without me the group will crumble, and I have to be strong for all of them. You know? Or other patterns like, I'm going to be in the back and hide, and I don't want anyone to see me, and I don't even want to be here, and everything
Yeah,
everything in between. Yeah.
totally, totally. Yeah.
Mm. And then there's this
Ah,
purely alchemical process, which is, I don't know if your teachers work with that, but Carol, this is like her main tool, um, of maintaining presence to contain all the stuff that comes up during the movements. So during a movement, maybe I'll have these ideas of having to save the group, and then I will get annoyed because this person has stepped on my foot, and then I will get giggly because this is so absurd and everyone's doing whatever. And all these reactions, what she calls, because she blends in also transactional analysis, she calls the different selves. There are all these like little parts of us that all have their different reactions, and this is energy. This is energy building up, building up, building up. And when we're present enough to contain and not leak by laughing, by looking around, by getting really annoyed, when we just contain and observe, this is where this energy builds up and can be transformed into something else, into the
Mm.
direction of our will. And this, yeah, this alchemical, almost physical process is a huge part as well of the
Wow,
exploration,
yeah.
right? Do you have
Oh, yeah, Amios. Yeah, yeah, she spoke about it too, in different ways, like
Mhm,
about like the, yeah, like slowing down the reaction, it's like rather than having like a reaction, it's an action, no?
mhm, yeah.
So like acting instead of reacting to something. And yeah, so it's kind of like that requires presence and requires us to observe the reaction before it gets acted out. But what you made me realize now when you were sharing was like how this is something that I've actually been journeying with very recently in a completely different way. And now I'm getting even more excited about doing the movements again after so long in the place where I'm at today. Because I feel like, and we all go on different spectrums. Like I'm in a very expressive side of the spectrum. Yeah, some people are on the other side where they like bottle up and don't express.
Mhm,
I tend to overexpress, you know. And something that I've been journeying with recently has been like noticing how, and I've been noticing, especially with sexual energy, having been celibate for a long time, that it's like, oh, what happens when I don't go into the expression of that energy and I actually like just be with it? And the amount of energy that like is incredible. And you just gave me a beautiful piece that I want to thank you for, which is like, and then that energy can be directed where my true will lies, rather than it just being expressed because it's too much intensity to actually feel. And there's a part of us that just wants to be like, ah, you
yeah.
know, just laugh or this or that. Instead, it's like, ooh, what happens if I really be with it and then like direct it to what are the things that are important to me right now and where is my will directing me to, Like,
Absolutely.
this is golden.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I mean, I know we talked about in another conversation around feeling more and how do we deal with intensity. It's also this idea of containing doesn't mean, oh, I want to laugh, I want to, but I'm gonna, it's this relaxed, how can I relax in intensity and choose not to express that in a way that it can still move through me so that my it's actually almost like a densifying of my energy fields and to relax into that intensity to then, as you were saying, use this energy to wield in in a way that's aligned with my body, heart, and mind, and this deeper quality that they call essence, that we could also call soul, that is to me pure choice, pure freedom and choice.
Mm.
Mm,
Yeah, because then we go into the whole free will thing, no? Because I know one of the teachings of Gurdjieff is like, first you have to realize that you're a slave. First you have to realize that your will is not free. Like you think it's free, but it's
mm,
actually like so conditioned, like you think it's your choice to enter that bar, but actually like there's so many things that have been like manipulating you, conditioning you in a certain way to choose that bar, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so until you're not aware of what all those pieces are, until you're not aware that you're like, yeah, living in a prison in some way, living in a cage,
Yeah.
then you cannot open the cage and break
Yeah.
free from it. Yeah, and so I feel like this is also one of the things that the movement helps us to do, is like it brings this awareness that then allows us to be more free in our choices because we're aware where the conditioning comes from. Why am I choosing this? Why am I going there? Why am I feeling like laughing now? Why do I want to go at the back of the row? What, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Automatics. Uh,
Automatics, exactly.
absolutely. And this is,
Yeah.
I mean, this is why I'm so in love with this work. For me, it's like the entrance into any spiritual exploration, and then we can go into deeper things. But the entry point in getting to know my own spirit is being able to observe, and then a layer deeper, being of choice. So having the
Mhm.
freedom to choose. So observe my automatics, and then being able to choose and direct my will. And that is, yeah, that is the essence of freedom. And for me, there's no, like, there's, if you don't get the observation, if you don't go through the observation first in the, and like the maze of automatics, that is my inner specific cage. If you don't go past that, you can do anything you want. It's not gonna change anything.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. So I would say the essence of this work is freedom.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And then I'm just fascinated by the range of the different movements, the different qualities of the movements. There's some movements that are very, very fiery, very, yeah, assertive of the will, the
Very
dervish
yang.
movements, very, very
Yeah.
warrior yang. And then there are very feminine, watery movements, where these are usually the movements that like completely crack me open, where there's just this movements around grief or around devotion, and
Yeah.
these just
Lord
these,
have mercy.
oh yeah. And there's prayers, we're using the words to, in combination of the movements, to deepen our prayers.
Shiver.
Yeah, and then very mechanical movements to break the automatic of how my body wants to flow. And actually, I'm going to put my body in this very strange, unusual position to create new neural pathways, to always break the brain's tendency to go into automatics and make patterns, and is actually not going to make any sense, so that we can go against that very comfortable pattern making and very comfortable, yeah, tendency that the brain does to chill and to rest and not to be alert. So lots of different qualities in these movements that have, yeah, teachings of their own.
Ah, yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I just realized it's actually touching, and I feel like also just sharing my gratitude for Amio and Chetan, that were my teachers that opened me up to this. And I said, like, before at the beginning when you were asking me why I was doing the movements, what kept me going, I said sobriety, but now I see that underneath that it was freedom. Yeah,
Mm.
like really this quality of freedom. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And so we
Ah,
will both be in the next Gurdjieff retreat that I'll be organizing for my teacher, Carol Squire, who's this incredible woman who's been teaching this for over 20 years. And it will happen in Berlin, October 25th to 29th. And yeah, it's just going to be a beautiful journey.
yeah, I'm really, really looking forward. Thank you for organizing this, Matilde. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for being part of it, being part of the adventure, and bringing your passion to it as well. Mm.